Good evening. It's Sunday. It's just gone 7 p.m. It's the 17th of January 2021. And my name's Toby Lepati Mesme, and over the next half hour, I am bringing you all the latest in UK and US politics from a unique leftist perspective, cutting through the noise of the corporate media. Get in touch in the chat. Please do come and say hello. We welcome your support. Drop us a like while you're at it. If you're watching this right now and you don't hate it yet, drop a like before it gets controversial. So coming up on the show tonight for you on a Sunday, we've got a jam-packed agenda. We will be talking about Dominic Raab and the government's vaccine rollout. We'll be talking about Labour, their surprisingly effective sort of welfare team, and shadow welfare team, I should say, and their attack line towards the government on universal credit. We'll be talking about Joe Biden, the promising noises around executive action we're hearing from the incoming administration, the fact this is clearly not going to be the Obama 3.0, the third Obama term sort of administration we thought it might be, and why tax credits are not as good as direct relief going out to the people. But first, I want to talk to you, before we talk about Sean Bailey, the London mayoral candidate for the Conservative Party, I want to talk to you about Jeremy Corbyn. So, Jeremy Corbyn has launched his Peace and Justice project today. He announced it back, I believe it was December, but now the thing is actually getting off the ground. So Jeremy Corbyn has pledged to campaign against the arrival of Rupert Murdoch's News UK television channel as he launched his Peace and Justice project at an online rally. A more just, free and accountable media is one of the four causes Corbyn is encouraging his supporters to back. He also urged them to help with organising direct support in communities, such as food banks, campaign for a Green New Deal, and press the government to speed up the delivery of COVID vaccines in developing countries, saying so many of the ideas we need to make the 2020s better than the 2010s were developed in and around the Labour Party in recent years by outstanding thinkers but more importantly by demands of our movements and the skills, knowledge and needs of the communities affected. We will build on these policies, taking them further, adapting them to the post-pandemic world so that the movement can turn the dial towards peace and justice. Let's have a listen to Jeremy Corbyn on his new project.
Jeremy, the floor is yours.
Christine, thank you very much. And thank you everyone for spoken this afternoon. Thank you for those tens of thousands that have listened in this afternoon and will be sending in their comments and their questions. The whole point of the project is empowerment of people. The whole point of the project is about people doing things together, understanding each other, but understanding that those often quite difficult, quite small campaigns end up in achieving things. Those people that thought their landlord was overpowerful and they couldn't resist him when they were trying to evict people in the private rented sector, fought back and won. Those people that came together after the awful events at Orgreave during the miners' strike in Britain in 1984, 1985, are still fighting for justice. They've become an inspiration, the Orgreave Truth and Justice campaign. And there's so many other campaigns in this country and all around the world that stood together during the most difficult times. So what our project will do is support people, bring people together, and go through the four initial big areas of work that we want to do as a project, because our community, our country, our world is at a turning point. Are we going to let those that will destroy the environment and the natural world and our biodiversity get away with it and thus damage the chances of everybody else? Are we not going to learn the lesson from the corona crisis, that it's enriched the richest at the expense of the poorest, that the sum total, as Noam was pointing out, of the Donald Trump administration has been a massive shift of power and wealth away from the majority to the very wealthiest within the United States of America? So it's up to us what we do to empower ourselves and empower our others by understanding culture, music, life, history, understanding all these things, but above all, bringing about the economic and social changes that are necessary. Our project is designed to help create a society that is fit and a world that is fit for the next generation. Thank you.
That's Jeremy Corbyn there talking upon the launch of his new Peace and Justice project. So, an excellent launch, some really good people speaking. So you had Len McCluskey, excellent. You had Greek Finance Minister Yanis Varoufakis, excellent smart guy. Zara Sultana, MP, upcoming talent on the left of the Labour Party, may turn out to be all of our saviour, our collective saviour in the end as a left of the Labour Party. But we also had two incredible people. So we had an anti-apartheid campaigner and minister in Nelson Mandela's government, that's Ronnie Kasrils. We had union leaders, had a climate justice leader, and we had Noam Chomsky. I said we had, they had. Obviously, I was not involved with this, but excellent. Noam Chomsky speaking, brilliant. So it tells you a lot about this project. First of all, the launch was great. Of course, it was virtual, but it all went off pretty seamlessly. But you can tell that this is a thing you should take seriously and that has the right priorities in mind by seeing who are involved. Right, Noam Chomsky is involved. That's how you know. If Noam Chomsky agrees to speak at it, it's probably a worthwhile initiative. And that's what makes me think this will automatically be a good thing. Not necessarily because the Corbyn name is on it, but because those people are speaking at it, that means its priorities, whatever it achieves, its priorities are absolutely in the right place. It can act as a power base for Corbyn outside the Labour Party, and it can act as a pressure force within the British left, especially to push the Labour leadership to be more ambitious. We have to build that institutional power. We have to build those media outlets, those organisations. And this project, the Peace and Justice Project, can very much be a single composite part of that broader ecosystem we have to build to exert pressure in the same way our progressive comrades in the Democratic Party are doing as we speak with the Biden administration. This will not be a political party. I know some people think it will. It will not turn into a political party, and it should not turn into a political party. At least not under the current electoral system, because the reality is the only route to progressive change at the moment is the Labour Party. And the Labour Party is sometimes dreadful. But we have to exert influence outside and within the Labour Party, but the electoral route is through the Labour Party. That isn't going to change, because first past the post dooms us. How did UKIP do in terms of seats, even though they got an impressive vote share at some point? Think of that, but for the left. Maybe we'll garner a good vote share. Maybe our message will resonate. But a left populist offering won't break through in first past the post. Without first past the post, maybe a left populist party could be formed. I'm using the analogy, but a left UKIP, basically. So, nothing like UKIP, no similarities with UKIP, but that sort of thing that UKIP did for the radical right, but for the left. It can work, we can do it, maybe Corbyn could even be the figurehead of it, but not under, although ideally someone newer like Zara Sultana, but that can't be done in the current system. It just can't. However, if Starmer's Labour don't welcome and don't cease attacking the left, it will happen. And a left-wing version of the Social Democratic Labour Party will pop up, as it did in the 80s, and that will stuff Labour one way or the other. That is why I keep saying Starmer cannot win without the left. And indeed, he'll go to a worse result than 2019 if he doesn't have the left on side. And they form some sort of splinter force in various constituencies. Which I'm not endorsing. Now, over to Sean Bailey. So the Conservatives' London mayoral candidate has been accused of, quote, an attack on working class families after comments emerged in which he appeared to suggest that poor people cannot be trusted with money. So he's running against Sadiq Khan. The election has been delayed for a year because of the COVID pandemic. A YouGov poll in November showed Sadiq Khan with a 20-point lead over Bailey, who's his closest rival. So he's been criticised for a series of controversial comments, including suggesting homeless Londoners could save up to £5,000 to deposit for a mortgage, And giving evidence to a House of Commons Select Committee in 2011, he said the key thing about poverty and poor people is that poverty is as much about mindset as it is about money. If you give poor people lots of money, they want to buy things, and not always what they need. They buy what they want. So the remarks were made when he was an ambassador for David Cameron's Big Society volunteering initiative. Angela Rayner has said this is a disgusting attack on working class families, which reveals the true colours of the Conservative candidate for Mayor of London. And just, of course, to remind you, in a 2005 pamphlet for the think tank the Centre for Policy Studies, Bailey claimed that there was a culture of dependency ruling the working class, and that the liberal agenda hasn't benefited the working class. The working class looks to rules. The rules are important to them. Take away the rules and they're left in limbo. So some sort of semi-Edwardian claptrap there. A bit Marie Antoinette. Bailey's a disgrace. Just as a candidate, there are so many specks on his record. It's not one comment here or there. He is literally a parody of the Tories and all their tropes that they've used to turn working people against each other and just to demonise, ostracise and attack the most vulnerable in society. He is a Trojan horse for a brand of really aggressive right-wing politics when you really look at the record, really look at what he believes in. Because, he's running for Mayor of London. He seems like a friendly, approachable guy. He's a black candidate. The candidate for Mayor of London is black, right, for the Tory party. And it sort of adds to an appearance of he can't be, it's not Zach Goldsmith. It's not some sort of crankish racist, which is what Zach Goldsmith evidently was. And it looks like they've changed course. But the reality is, right, this guy is just an approachable face for a really hostile brand of politics that attacks the most vulnerable in society. He's going to lose in a landslide. It's right he loses in a landslide. He is a disgrace to everything the City of London stands for: diversity, tolerance, openness, all these different things. And he is, an utterly dreadful candidate, and by all accounts, a dreadful individual. So don't fall for, oh look, he can't be that bad. It's just, Tory mayoral candidate Sadiq Khan's not great. Maybe just get rid of him. No. Way worse than Boris Johnson, right? This is a really bad candidate with a... okay, I'm going to say worse. On par with Boris Johnson in terms of hideous comments regarding the most vulnerable in society, basically. Over to the United States now, as we so often like to go. And Joe Biden, President-elect Joe Biden, is inheriting a collection of crises unlike any in generations. He plans to open his administration with dozens of executive directives on top of expansive legislative proposals in a 10-day blitz meant to signal a turning point for a nation reeling from disease, economic turmoil, racial strife, and now the aftermath of an assault on the US Capitol. Mr. Biden's team has developed a raft of decrees that he can issue on his own authority after the inauguration on Wednesday to begin reversing some of President Trump's most hotly disputed policies. Advisors hope the flurry of action, without waiting for Congress, will establish a sense of momentum for the new president, even as the Senate puts his predecessor on trial. On his first day in office alone, Mr. Biden intends a flurry of executive orders that are partly substantive and partly symbolic. They include rescinding the travel ban on several predominantly Muslim countries, rejoining the Paris Climate Change Accord, extending pandemic-related limits on evictions and student loan payments, issuing a mask mandate for federal property and interstate travel, and ordering agencies to figure out how to reunite children separated from families after crossing the border, according to a memo circulated on Saturday by Ron Klain, his incoming White House Chief of Staff. He also plans to send sweeping immigration legislation on his first day in office, providing a pathway to citizenship for 11 million people in the country illegally, along with his promise to vaccinate 100 million Americans for the coronavirus in the first 100 days. Let's also listen to this. There's a report from ABC News about the preparations for the inauguration and the fact basically the country's on high alert.
We begin tonight with the nation on high alert. 4 days to the inauguration of Joe Biden and the hope of a peaceful transfer of power. But it comes after that violent siege at the Capitol. And so tonight, thousands of National Guard troops are on duty in Washington. By Wednesday, there will be 25,000 troops. 4 bridges into the city will be closed. The streets are deserted, storefronts are boarded up. Much of the National Mall is closed. The FBI saying that last week's attack likely emboldened domestic extremists. And tonight, a new arrest. Media personality Tim Giannett, known as Baked Alaska, allegedly spotted on video inside the Capitol chanting, quote, "Patriots are in control." And Jenna Ryan, the Texas real estate broker who flew to D.C. in a private plane, now asking for a pardon, saying she doesn't feel guilty because she thought she was following the president. And it's not just Washington on alert tonight. At least 10 states activating the National Guard, and their capitals are boarded up. ABC's Kenneth Moat leads us off from Washington.
Tonight, the nation's capital now a fortress. Fences, checkpoints, and barricades forming a ring of steel from the White House to Capitol Hill. This bridge and 3 others connecting Virginia to D.C. shutting down starting Tuesday. 25,000 National Guard troops, many armed, flooding D.C. by Inauguration Day. Massive trucks like this stationed around this city, 5 times the number of American troops in Iraq and Afghanistan guarding D.C.
Our mission here is to protect our people and our property, and so we're going to do everything to make sure that they're successful.
A Virginia man arrested at a D.C. checkpoint with an unauthorized inauguration credential. Police say he had a loaded handgun and 500 rounds of ammunition. Tonight, the FBI on edge about the threat of improvised explosive devices on Inauguration Day and the threat to political leaders, saying the January 6th attack on the Capitol likely emboldened domestic extremists.
I don't know if anyone has raised their hand to say, we are coming, we will be there, but we are preparing as if they are.
At least 10 states activating their National Guard. Capital cities boarding up. Michigan's legislature...
It's not pretty. It's really not a pretty situation. By the way, thanks for listening. You are listening to MesmePolitics, and please like the video if you're enjoying, because it does actually, you know, apparently, I'm told it helps us out with how the algorithm functions, so please do that. And, you know, if you've made it this far, you probably like the video, so please like the video. And check out other videos we've done. And remember, we are on Greenwich Mean Time daily, 7 p.m, bringing you all the latest in UK and US politics from a leftist perspective. So, in terms of Biden's stuff, action on a pathway to citizenship, great. He's following through on that. It looked really worrying. It's still very worrying what he was saying about detention and the various policies there. So this is good. Excellent. Good. Executive ambition. Good. It's good to hear the administration talking about using executive action. Remains to be seen if they have the necessary ambition, but there were a lot of noises from Democrats that they weren't going to favour that. And, you know, they're shoveling out the cash in terms of the packages that they want to propose. That's good. It looks like they are going to take an investment-first approach to rebuilding the economy. That's the best path from an economic perspective, but it's also the best path from a social justice perspective. But of course, it all depends on where the money goes. Clearly, and I wasn't sure at the beginning, clearly this is not going to be the Obama administration 3.0. This is not going to be a third Obama term. It will be different. It depends how big the difference will be. That really does remain to be seen. But this will go bigger. It will be more ambitious. What's being proposed is more ambitious. The scale of the crisis is bigger. We're going bigger than Obama's first term and certainly bigger than his second term. The question is, are they going to go a little bit bigger or are they going to go a lot bigger and actually step up and match the crises that the American working class faces? In terms of tax credits, let's talk about tax credits. They are not the poverty-busting tools that many seem to think they are on the centre-left. They do lift people out of poverty, but it often hits people very near the edge. And people right in deep poverty are not lifted out. Therefore, the problem with that is that it looks good, it ticks the boxes, but it is not really the great social equality producing tool that people seem to think it is on the centre left. Getting relief and money direct in people's pockets A, better for the economy, but B, it is far better in lifting people out of poverty, getting them the support they need. Focusing on there's even been talks of a tax cut that would overwhelmingly benefit the rich from Democrats, not from Biden himself. Again, that would be an utter betrayal of everything the Democrats professed to stand for in the recent elections. We do have to remember this whole thing, most of the party in Congress, in the House and Senate, but also most of the administration are essentially, by our standards, conservatives. We're dealing with conservatives. The show is being run by conservatives whose opposition are further right conservatives. So we're dealing with moderate conservatives. We're going to have to, some of them not so moderate, we're really going to have to steel ourselves. We're going to have to squeeze any sort of progress or results out of these people. They're not just going to hand it to us. It is going to take work. It's going to take convincing. It's going to take action. And if we just roll over and go, oh, this looks quite good. No, do not get complacent. Assume nothing will be delivered that you want delivered. That's the way we have to look at this. John says, good start, but unravelling the damage Trump has inflicted will take a long time. It's almost a distraction from the core thing, right? So, I agree. Trump has inflicted damage, but he was relatively constrained throughout his term, and all the things he sped up were long-term factors. The division, the alternative media landscape, the delusions, the racism, all these things that were radicalising conservatives had been going on for decades, partly emboldened and absolutely enabled by the complicity of liberals and Democrats in the United States throughout that period, by refusing to offer an alternative. So the reality is, if we just undo what Trump did, someone worse than Trump will come along. We have to change things. The direction of the Democratic Party has to radically change. A lot of respectable people are going to have their feathers ruffled. Or the Trump era was just a warm-up act. This is a brief interval of 4 years with Biden, and then we go plunging into a whole world of hell we hadn't seen before. I'm going to head back over to the UK now for our final story of the day. All adults in the UK should have been offered the COVID vaccination by September, Dominic Raab has said.
Can we get every adult in this country vaccinated by June?
Well, the plan, as you know, is, and we're making good progress. We've had 3.5 million people administer their first dose. The daily rate is up to over 300,000 on the latest figures. And the plan is to get the first 15 million most vulnerable people vaccinated with the first dose by the middle of February. We then want to get by early spring another 17 million. At that point, we'll have 99% of those most at risk of dying of coronavirus administered their first jab. And then the adult population, entire adult population, we want to have been offered a first jab by September. That's the roadmap.
So the answer is no, basically. It won't be done by June, it'll be done by September.
Well, what I was just going to say is that's the roadmap. We think we've got the capacity to deliver it. Obviously, if it can be done more swiftly than that, then that's a bonus. The number one thing right now is to protect that roadmap and that rollout and protect the NHS, given the new variants and the transmission rates we've seen. So
that's Dominic Raab there. Your reminder, the daily cases right now, nearly 39,000. Daily death rate today, 671. 5.8% of the population have received their first dose of the vaccine, and we're teetering towards 90,000 deaths. And that's the more conservative estimate. We'll be talking about Labour's shadow welfare team in a minute, but first, the government are not going to over-deliver. That's the best we can hope for, September, right? But we do have to remember, things are actually going quite well here, much better than I thought they would. It looked like the government were going to cock up the vaccine rollout, basically. Now it looks like we're Hancock it up. Get it? But no, now we actually do look like we're on track. We look like things are going relatively well. Vaccines are not and will never be a magic wand against this, but we are back on track in the rolling out of these things, and it does look like the government is delivering on what it said it would do, and I say that with great hesitancy because I am expecting them to blunder in and ruin it within like a day. And this might be what it will be. So the government apparently is talking about defying scientists and reopening earlier in March or whenever, even if the scientists say caution, caution. That's really worrying. That's quite scary, because that's an exact repeat of the mistakes they made before. And if they do that, they doom us to continued transmission, more evolution of the virus, more strains and mutations of the virus, and a disaster in winter 2021. They need to pursue a zero COVID strategy. They need to lock down hard. They need to keep us in this lockdown until we've got the curve down, until vaccines are really, really on track, right? But they're not going to do that. That's the scary thing. That might be where this all goes wrong. Or maybe they'll just run out of supply within, it could all go to pot very quickly. Let's have a quick listen to Jonathan Reynolds, the Shadow Work and Pension Secretary, on Sky with Beth Rigby. Sophie Ridge. Beth Rigby got removed, didn't she, for having a COVID party. But yeah, let's have a listen, because they're talking about the universal credit cut.
We've got Labour's Shadow Work and Pension Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, on the programme. I'm not sure how much of that you managed to catch, but we just saw a film showing the impact of school closures on young people, many struggling to get the technology they need, anxiety, worry about not getting the grades they deserve. At what point do you think schools need to reopen?
Well, it was an incredibly powerful film. I did just hear it, and credit to those young people for speaking to you so candidly the way that they did. That is why we wanted to keep schools open as long as possible. Unfortunately, the Department of Education didn't take the steps necessary to keep them open for longer. But to hear young people describe how they still haven't got access to technology, haven't got access to broadband at this stage of the pandemic is inexcusable. Clearly, to answer your question directly, schools can only go back when the health factors are such that they allow them to go back. But there is no excuse for the government not acting to make sure people have technology and access to online learning at home. None whatsoever.
I appear to be getting an advert playing through on... you don't want to hear that. Then that's an advert for a very well-known brand of car. Hang on. You're back with Sky. There you go.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because looking forward, you say that schools can only go back when the health factors allow them to go back. My question, I guess, is what does that actually mean? I mean, Labour, you're in a position where you have been criticised, I guess, for calling for things that are going to happen anyway. This is a chance to kind of set out a roadmap. At what point do you think schools should be able to go back? What's your roadmap for that to happen?
It will depend on the rollout of the vaccination programme. It will depend on the infection rates in each area, and it will depend on the state of the NHS and whether it's on the brink of being overwhelmed, as it is in many parts of the country. First of all, if you go ahead with this cut, you are reducing out-of-work support unemployment benefits to their lowest real terms level since 1992 at a time when unemployment is about to peak. But of course, the reason a one-off payment is a bad policy is, whilst we're talking about 6 million families being affected, those families will change throughout the year. Some will go back into work, some will come out. We've had at times of the pandemic 200,000 new claimants coming onto the system in a single month. So a one-off payment, a snapshot, completely fails to support those people. There is simply no reason that this cut should take place in April. It's the wrong thing for families. I mean, £1,000 a year is like your gas, your electric, your broadband bill, all rolled in together. But it's also the wrong thing for the economy. That is £6 billion of spending being taken out of the economy at a time when we need it the most, frankly. So the priority for us is to secure the economy, protect the NHS, and then rebuild the country. And to do that, Parliament has to do the right thing tomorrow.
Very on message. So Labour have had an excellent line on the universal credit cut. They've been very clear. They've made a very eloquent case for why we should keep it. And I think basically no one, save the most fervent, sort of brain-numbing free marketeers, would have any quarrel with it, because it all makes perfect sense. The line on it from Labour is very, very sensible. It makes complete sense. And Labour's shadow welfare team, the Shadow Work and Pensions team, have done really well at the moment. They've had some really good talking points and really good sort of pushing back on the various cruel excesses of Tory rule. Let's not slip back to the Miliband era of being cruel to people on benefits. Let's not slip back to demonising people who use the benefit system because of the inadequacies of the work they're in. Let's not do that. It looks like Labour won't do that. But let's really, we've heard a bit of talk of value for money and things like that. Let's not go back in that direction. Let's keep things how they are. And hopefully the Corbyn era can have had a lasting effect on the party in that it's pushed it away from being so needlessly cruel to some of the most vulnerable people in our society. That's it from me. My name is Toby Lepati Mesme. I'm back with you tomorrow from 7 PM for more of the latest in UK and US politics from a unique leftist perspective. Please subscribe. Get me on Twitter at TobyJoshuaUK for daily hot takes, or I'm on Medium at TobyJoshuaPolitics for daily 2-minute reads, twice daily 2-minute reads. I'll see you tomorrow, 7 PM.